Good day to you and welcome back. Today we'll be discussing about motherboard, the buses and the features on it. So motherboard, also called main board, or you can call it main circuit board. Or if you are using an output computer, you can call it a logic board. Logic board is the main printed circuit board in a general purpose and other expandable system. So what we mean by circuit board is that it is made up of both discrete and passive components of electronics components, right? So you can see all these are combination of different passive and active components, electronic components, which is made up of the what? The motherboard, together with all other ports like the USB port and everything that are used for the input, the expandable slot for expanding or adding more capability to the system. So it holds and allows communication between many of the crucial electronic components of the system, such as the central processing unit and memory, and provide connectors for other peripherals. So it enables you to connect to other peripherals. Unlike a backplane, a motherboard usually contains significant subsystems such as the central processor, the chipset, input-output, and then the memory controller, interface connectors, and other components integrated for what? General use. So motherboard consists of many types of what? Input ports, such as your USB port, your audio port, your serial port, your Ethernet port. It has the CPU socket, the memory slot for increasing your memory or adding more memory, the hard drive slot, which as you can see, this one is more like a SATA hard drive. So you can see we have the notch bridge with each sink. So each sink is for cooling down it, right? And then we'll have the south bridge, the ROM, and the backup battery, which is mostly the CMOS battery. This makes sure that your time is what? Constant and correct. So there are different types of motherboards. We have the ATX motherboard, the Micro-ATX, and the Mini-ITX. So, but whenever we are discussing a motherboard, about motherboard, and whenever we want to select a motherboard or even want a new system or desktop, we have to discuss about the form factors, because form factors help us in selecting the system that will serve the best purpose for the function that we want to use it for. So form factor refers to the physical layout and size of the motherboard. It determines what type of case and power supply you will need, and how many ports you will have, and how many components you will be able to install. And the most common form factor are the ATX, the Micro-ATX, and the Mini-ATX, right? So the ATX itself is a standard full-size motherboard with a multiple expansion slot. So you can see you have different expansion slots. You have expansion over here, another expansion slot over here, another expansion slot over here, but this one is mainly for the what? The memory. So it is a standard full-size motherboard with multiple expansion slots and commonly used for what? Desktop and what? Gaming PC. Then we have the what? The Micro-ATX, which is smaller than the ATX. That is, we are talking about this. The Micro-ATX is smaller than the ATX with fewer expansion slots, but suitable for budget and compact desktop use, right? And then we have the Micro-ITX. It is a compatible motherboard with minimal expansion and ideal for small form factor PC and home entertainment PC. So those are the different types of what? Motherboard that we have based on the form factor, that is the size and the what? The capacity of what they can perform. Then a motherboard also have different slots and connectors. So among the different slots we have is the what? The peripheral component interconnect express, which is the PCI, right? It is used for what? Connecting our GPUs, expanding our sound card, inserting new sound card, or even changing of our SSD for IC. And it comes in different sizes. As you can see from this diagram, It's come in different sizes. You can see this one is of smaller size, while this one is of what? Larger size, and many other sizes that are existing. Then we have the other port, which is the dual inline memory module slot, which houses our what? Our RAM. This one houses the RAM. You can see it over here. So this is the dual module memory slot, right? It is mostly used for what? The different RAM that we have. It houses the RAM stick for temporary data storage and processing. So we have previously seen the RAM stick when we are discussing about memories, right? So those particular RAM that we showcase are mostly inserted into this particular RAM slot, which is the dual inline memory module. And it supports different types of RAM, such as the DDR4, DDR5, and then the earlier memory type on motherboard. Then the other slot we have is the what? The M2 slot, which is mostly used for our NVMe, which we discussed under the type of hard disk, and then the SATA SSD for high-speed storage performance. You can see them over here. So these are the various M2 slots we are discussing about. So they are mostly used for what? NVMe and SATA SSD for high speed, and it replaces the traditional 2.58 SATA SSD for more compatible what? Builds. Then we have the SATA serial data port, which is used for connecting the hard drive, SSD, and optical drive. I think that one can be seen over here. So this is the one we are talking about now, the hard drive slot over here. So it is mostly used for connecting hard drive, the SSD, and then the optical drive. The optical drive is your what? Your CD-ROMs, whether a DVD or the CD, any one of them. And it supports data transfer rate up to what? 6 GB in what? SATA 3. Then we also have the chipset, right? A chipset is a collection of integrated circuits on the motherboard that control data flow between the CPU, the memory, storage, and then the peripherals. So here we'll be discussing about the SAT bridge and the what? The NOT bridge, right? So the NOT bridge manages the high-speed communication between the CPU, the RAM, and the GPU, while it plays a critical role in system performance, but is now integrated into modern CPU. So the NOT bridge is no more in existence in modern CPU, and it has been integrated into the what? The CPU part of it, right? Then the SAT bridge. The SAT bridge controls slower peripherals like the USB, the SATA, and the PCI. So the SAT bridge is mainly, the purpose of it is for what? Controlling the what? The various PCI that we have, the USB ports, and then the what? The SATA itself. That is the connection which is on the other side. Let me show you again. So this particular one. So the SAT bridge is mostly used for what? Controlling those. And it is replaced by the integrated chipset solution in motherboard. So it has also been replaced by the integrated chipset solution in what? Modern motherboard. So let's talk about the modern motherboard integrated circuits. So newer motherboard using a single chipset architecture integrated with what? CPU. It improves the power efficiency, reduce latency, and enhance overall performance. Example of them include the Intel Z690, AMD B550, AMD X270 chipset. Then as part of the motherboard, we also have the what? The system buses. The system bus serves as a communication pathway between our components with a computer. So the type of system bus that we have on the motherboard include the front side bus, so it includes the front side bus and the back side bus. The front side bus connects the CPU to the main memory and replaced by the direct media interface. And then the back side bus. The back side bus connects the CPU to the L2 cards for faster data retrieval and largely obsolete due to what? Modern CPU card integration. Then we have the expansion bus. The expansion bus allows additional hardware components to connect to the system, including the PCI, PCIe, older legacy interface like the what? The AGP. So some of the modern data interface that we have include the USB, which is the Universal Serial Bus. The USB, Universal Serial Bus. So this is what we are discussing about. This is your USB, another USB over here, and this is your what? RJ45 port. So the Universal Serial Bus is used for connecting external devices such as your keyboard, your mice, and then the flash drive. There are two types. We have the USB 3.2 and the USB 4, which provides faster transfer speed and power delivery. Then we have the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt have the IP data and video transfer interface and support PCI, DisplayPort, and power delivery through a what? A single port. Then we have the PCI Component Interconnect Express. It is also part of the modern data interface, which has a high-speed expansion interface for GPU, then storage devices and network cards. Then we have the PCI 4.0 and the PCI 5.0 offer improved bandwidth for high performance applications. So we also have the word SATA as part of the modern data interface, SATA serial data, which is what used for storage devices and slower than the PCI based NVMe storage, but still relevant for bulk data storage solutions, right? So this is all about the motherboard. So you can see the ATX motherboard, the micro motherboard, and the Mini-ITX motherboard. And you can see the difference between them, ATX versus Micro-ATX versus Mini-ITX, right? So all these are the various type of motherboard that we have. So you have an assignment over here. So you have to explain how a motherboard works. Then list out the type of motherboard in existence, starting from the oldest one to the current modern one. Then based on your knowledge of motherboard, explain what you need to consider when buying a new desktop or laptop based on their what? The motherboard. Then explain the function of each thing found on what? Motherboard. So that is the end of today's class until we meet in the next class. Thank you.